Thanks for listening to Gossip with Celebrity, brought to you by Celebrity.com. This week we talk about the Royals and the Oscars. We end with our weekly feature, The Comments of the Week. The stories, photos, and tweets we talk about can be found at Celebrity.com/podcast under episode 120.
Hi, I'm Katie, the founder and editor of Celebrity.com, and I write as Celebrity.
And I'm Chandra, I'm the head writer for Celebrity, and I write as Kaiser.
So we're going to have episode... I can't even pronounce it right. We're going to have episodes out the next 2 weeks, and then we're going to be off on April 23rd.
I agree.
Okay, good.
And this coming weekend, we have the Grammys.
No.
Yeah, on Sunday.
Jesus Christ. I forgot it was this weekend. Like, I put it on the calendar, but I haven't looked at the calendar. We'll just do some fashion. We don't have to stay up and watch it, do we?
No.
I know I'm the boss, but I always defer to you because you do all the work.
Well, no, you made me a promise months ago that I wouldn't have to stay up for the fucking Grammys because they're my least favorite award show.
Oh, okay. I think I did that for myself, too. I don't remember telling you
You're
that,
like,
but...
we only have to watch half of it. My firm bedtime for the Grammys is 10 p.m. I'm not staying up any later than that.
Yeah, after the fucking Oscars, we earned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got over the hard one. Although I'm still salty that the Met Gala is happening. Come on. Maybe we'll get a new variant. But no, I don't want that. I don't want that just to get me out of a day of work. Come on.
Well, I mean, that's not for another month. So we'll hopefully be recovered by the Oscars by then. And also, we're not gonna like stay up for 2 hours before the Grammys to like do a huge like designer document. Fashion always sucks at the Grammys. We're only gonna do the big people, okay?
Okay, it sounds good. You know me though, I'm so detail oriented. I get caught in the weeds. Yeah, I'll do like 2 posts. You do like 2 posts. And...
Like if a lot of stuff happens, we'll cover it, and you know, especially if there are videos. But like that's the thing about the Grammys. It's video based. It's not about the fashion.
And you can't ever get the videos because it's all music that's copywritten and they don't put it online. And when they do, they pull it. And then they sing all these stupid fucking ballads. You know, it's like, ugh.
Yeah. So, you know, we can just kind of breeze through the Grammys.
Okay. I saw The Lost City. I don't have to really talk about it. It's funny for about the first third, and it feels like somebody else wrote the rest of the movie. Like the first third, you're laughing out loud. The writing is hilarious, and there's some great jokes. But the rest of it kind of like, it doesn't drag, but it's not as good. But it was fun. I recommend it.
I heard that Daniel Radcliffe is like secretly the best part.
He's wonderful. He's so funny and cute. I really like him. I like that story today where he was minding his business about the Will Smith thing.
I know. That was amazing.
He's like, nope.
He was like, none of my business. I'm not going to talk about it.
He followed your advice.
Seriously.
And you got sick like the last day of the Royal Tour. So last Thursday, Friday, you got really sick, you poor thing. I was like, take the day off. And you're like, no, because you never...
There was just so much royal stuff happening. Yeah, so a week ago, we're recording this on Thursday. A week ago, I felt like I was going to pass out. I just hurt. Like, my whole body was hurting. My jaw was really sore.
Ooh.
And I just felt really nauseous. You were like, you know, go, take off, I'll finish. I went straight to bed. I slept for hours. Then I got up and just started vomiting. It was real gross.
Aw. Well, at least you got it out of your system. Sometimes once you get it out of your system, it's better.
Yeah, I still felt like hell the next day. It was a decent 48-hour, 56-hour bug.
Oof.
It was pretty bad.
I'm sorry you went through that. I'm glad you're feeling better. Like, oof.
And you think it's some like new variant of COVID. I just think it was a normal norovirus.
It could have been norovirus.
I've had the norovirus before, and I thought I was going to die. This was a much weaker version of that.
I remember when you were sick like that. I've told you I got that on a cruise once. It's like ruined my whole vacation.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I had it, oh my God. I just felt like death. I really did.
My kid used to get that like every 6 months to a year. when he was in school because they were just passing around when they were little. Oh, the poor baby. I was always kept Gatorade at my house. And sorry, go ahead.
No, this just felt like a more traditional stomach bug.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're better.
I do think it's going around. I'm watching tennis, the Miami Open, and half of the players have had to pull out because of quote unquote a viral illness. I'm like, oh God, those tennis players are vomiting all over the place.
Ugh. I've seen on Twitter that some doctors are saying the BA2 has the gastrointestinal symptoms, but who knows? And like even the stupid tests you take don't really measure, right? So who knows what anybody's getting.
I think it's just Occam's razor. If it's presenting as something like a norovirus, it probably is.
Yeah. I'm glad you're better and that it didn't last too long for you. I mean, I can't cover that royal stuff. I'll just mess it up. I sort of could, but it's going to be obviously me.
Well, I mean, by that point, it was getting kind of funny how tone deaf they were and how unable they were to steer out of the drama.
Okay, let's just talk about the royals then. Because I could put the little music right there. So, insane amount of stories have happened. And thank you for covering all that. I mean, as always, it was impressive. So last week when we were off, the Cambridges had the royal tour of the Caribbean. And we talked about that, on the podcast. And we're like, oh, it's going to be bad. We did not know how bad it was going to be. It was truly, truly bad.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, right before they left to head straight for Belize, after we recorded the podcast, like a day later, that was when the protests started and when all the shit started to hit the fan in Belize. Like, oh, they're going to land their helicopter on, protected land and all this stuff. It just set the tone.
It was disaster after disaster. There were multiple photo ops that were very, very bad. There's Kate on camera recoiling from a woman hosting an event who tried to reach out to her, a Black woman. It just looked like she didn't want to be there. And there's pictures of them trying to touch people, Black children, through a fence. Yeah, it was very bad. And they got dumped on camera by the Jamaican Prime Minister, who told them before they even sat down that Jamaica was out of the Commonwealth and it was time to move on. And after that, they did that photo op where they were riding in the Jeep like the Queen and Prince Philip in 1962. And Kate copied the outfit and everything. It looks so terrible.
Yeah.
You think after you get dumped, you're like, okay, maybe I should chill out, go visit a school or something. Nope.
And I never understood why they were incapable of just shifting a few photo ops around. Like, just make a few adjustments. They wouldn't even have to cancel anything. Just say, on second thought, that will look bad.
Like, I'm just thinking of when we talked about their choo-choo tour, and we're like, wow, they didn't bring anything for people.
Yeah. That was another thing.
And then when William visited the refugees, he didn't bring anything for people. It's very similar here. Like, they just showed up and thought that their presence would grace everyone and made it a fashion show to the point where they're dressing like they're on safari when they're touring ruins. It was really bad.
Yeah. It was so bad that mainstream international media was picking it up.
Oh, yeah.
The New York Times, it wasn't just British outlets like The Guardian, even though The Guardian and The Independent had a lot to say. But like the New York Times, the Washington Post, I think even the LA Times got into it. They're like, how are these royals so bad at this?
Yeah.
How tone deaf are they? Are they completely living in the past where they think that this kind of imagery and stagecraft is acceptable in 2022?
Yeah, they must be. Like, how else would you do that? And it wasn't just one thing. It was many things.
Yes.
And so now they're saying they're not going to do as many tours because they can't. Like, they don't know what they're doing. And there's calls for an inquest into it. I don't think much is going to come of that, but
I think it's mostly going to be William just firing everyone and punishing all of his staffers for his bad decisions, basically.
I'm sure whenever somebody has tried to say something to them, they've gotten fired for that. And that's why they're continuing to make these terrible decisions.
And I'd like to separate out a few different things here. Okay, so William's behavior was that of, angry. He was enraged. You could tell that he was really pissed off that the tour was not going the way he planned it, the way it was supposed to, where everyone was like, oh, he's so much better than his brother. That was Will's point of view. Kate was a fucking embarrassment. Like, all of her new clothes, it was so obvious that she was there for a fashion show.
Yeah.
That she wanted to show off all of her new purchases, and she wasn't wearing any local designers. She chose maybe one or two local jewelry pieces. That's it.
They were probably gifted to her when she got there. And you called it with the antebellum dressing that she had. She's giving me Melania Trump vibes, but even Melania Trump is more modern in the way she dresses. But she really is giving me those vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loath to compliment Melania about anything, but Melania actually knows some stuff about fashion.
Yeah, that's about all she knows.
She has a little bit of an eye. I don't think she's as fashionable as she thinks she is, but she does have sort of an eye for interesting clothes and interesting fashion stories. Kate does not. Kate has her cosplay, and she copies Diana, she copies the Queen, and I think her default style is prairie dresses and sister wife looks and that antebellum bullshit.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
And she's so retrogressive fashion-wise styling. You have to wonder, is she trying to send a certain message that way? That she really wants to go back to an era where
it certainly seems like that by the photo ops that they did here and by the way they acted. It really does seem like that. So we talked about this on Zoom right after the Jamaican Prime Minister broke up with them. This was recorded on March 23rd.
I'm loving the Prime Minister breaking up with them on camera, like The Bachelor. It was hilarious. To their faces. We're glad you're here, but we're still breaking up with you.
He was like, don't get it twisted. I don't want you guys going back having people think that this was a success. Nice to see you. Hope you enjoy the sights. Take your ass home.
And you can see the wife is like, when are they leaving? Because I'm hungry.
You know what her face reminded me of? It reminded me of Michelle Obama when they were welcoming Donald Trump and Melania to the White House at the inauguration. That's what her face was giving me.
I really wonder if there were talks inside the Jamaican government, what if we announced when they're here? Because I'm sure they're getting so much more press than they otherwise would have. I mean, they still would have gotten tons of press, removing the Queen as heads of state. That is definitely international news, but I feel like they'll get more attention for it now. And maybe it'll give other Commonwealth countries that we can definitely do it.
So this was probably pre-planned that they were going to get dumped by Jamaica. And Charles knew, and you've been saying this all along.
Well, okay. I'm not sure if the Jamaican Prime Minister always planned to dump them while they were there.
Okay.
I think it became necessary to dump them while they were there because they were acting like such assholes. And
they handled it so poorly, yes.
Yeah. And he was rude on purpose. Everyone in Britain was like, oh, he was looking for attention. He was so rude. He was doing it on purpose to send a message that their behavior was unacceptable.
Yeah.
Now, Charles did do it on purpose.
Yeah, he did.
And it's not like he's Machiavellian he was just like, go and be yourselves.
This was predictable.
Yeah. He knew that they would fall flat on their faces and that they would look like fucking assholes.
And they were, and they did. And then Prince Charles and Camilla did a little 2-day victory tour in Ireland right at the end of the Cambridge's disaster Caribbean tour.
It went down really well in Ireland. Charles got rave reviews, and he was, praised for being very statesmanlike and for showing a lot of respect for Irish people and Irish culture. He did everything that the Cambridges didn't.
Ooh, so he's showing who's going to be king.
Mm-hmm.
There's no usurping him. So we also had the memorial for Prince Philip this week. We've been hearing about that for months. And the Queen went accompanied by Prince Andrew. Of course, she didn't use a wheelchair because we've been hearing that she's not going to use one. And then we heard it was her idea, and she insisted on Andrew bringing her there.
And then other sources have said that Andrew was the one insisting, and that he kind of like pushed this idea onto the Queen. And she was like, oh, yeah, that's a really good idea.
All right. Oh, the story today about how he feels he has a lot to offer still or some shit.
Yeah. But basically, it doesn't matter. The Queen and Andrew are joined together in their belief that he can make a comeback and that she is going to protect him through everything. And that as long as she lives, he's going to have a place in royal life at some level.
That looks really bad, too. And that was on all the covers of the British newspapers.
What was crazy about that is that, there was all this buildup. Is Harry going to come? And Harry had said weeks ago that he wasn't going to come.
Yeah.
And then Kate tried to make Philip's memorial all about her. Kate was like wearing this really hideous black polka dotted dress, and she was mugging it up for the cameras, really preening. And then no one talked about her afterwards. They were like, God, she looks like an asshole. And then that was it.
So Rose Hanbury was there. That's one of the things. That's Kate's royal rival, whatever. You know what that means. But a lot of people were there, and her husband is aristocracy, so who knows. But the dress code was forest green because that was Philip's favorite color or something like that.
I mean, and Philip's memorial did not have a dress code. People were wearing hunter green or, Edinburgh green as a way to honor him. And like the senior women and like Queen Letizia and Queen Elizabeth, Duchess of Cornwall and Princess Royal, they were all in hunter green. Other women were not.
Yeah.
The Countess of Wessex was not. She was wearing something new, like she was trying to pull attention as well.
That's typical for her, though.
Yeah. And no one paid attention to her either. Although I am going to write a story about Lady Louise.
Oh, what is she doing? The little daughter. She's 18 now, right?
Yeah, that's what it's going to be about. Like, hey, isn't it weird that she hasn't been declared a princess yet? Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, and of course they're blaming Harry for not going, and there's all these consternation pieces about how Harry should have gone, whatever. That's pretty typical for the royal press.
In a few weeks, we do have Harry going to the Netherlands for Invictus Games, and that's going to be really exciting because
it will be.
I do think that Meghan will go. I bet you anything the babies will go.
Yeah, because if she goes, she's going to bring her kids with her.
Right. And so we might get really cute photo ops with Archie and his dad watching basketball or something like that.
I would love that, but I don't know.
It would be awesome.
It would be really nice. All right, let's talk about the Oscars.
No.
So, this week was crazy for us. The Oscars were Sunday, and then pretty much everyone and everything we expected to win did. Unfortunately, Jane Campion won Best Director for Power of the Dog. We were talking in our last podcast about how she compared herself to Venus and Serena Williams in her Critics' Choice speech, but she still won. CODA won Best Picture, which was really nice and well-deserved. And then the other categories were pretty much a lock. So
yeah.
It's kind of how we expected. There were no upsets.
There was a lot of late buzz for Penelope Cruz for Best Actress, but Jessica Chastain ended up winning, Ariana DeBose, and then Troy Kotsur, which that was my favorite moment of the Oscars, was Troy Kotsur winning.
Yeah, that was nice.
It was just beautiful. Every part of that was gorgeous.
And I loved it when CODA won, too. That was really nice. And hopefully that means we'll get more movies for hearing impaired people, about deaf people. I might write about it tomorrow. I don't know yet. But CODA's coming back. It's going to be in theaters, and it's going to be with open captions. And I would like more showings of movies to have captions. I've watched television with captions since I was little because my mom's hard of hearing. And, now they have caption devices in the movies, but they don't always work. Anyway, I thought that was really nice that CODA's coming back to theaters.
That is nice.
Or it's coming to theaters. So the ceremony was ridiculously long. And you called it, but I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be that long. They cut a bunch of categories and stuck them in the hour before, and then they added a bunch of totally shitty clip montages.
For no reason. There was no rhyme or reason for any of that shit.
Some of it was like, oh, let's celebrate this movie 30, 40, 50 years later. Okay. There were way too many of those. There were clip montages of the best movies and stuff. And there was like an additional category for the movie people liked. And it was like this terrible Netflix movie. Like, I like terrible zombie movies. I really do. And I thought that movie was a total piece of shit. I have watched so many zombie movies. So, yeah, I can't even remember the name of it. It was so dumb. And then, of course, the smack happened. So Chris Rock presented Best Documentary. That went to Questlove for Summer of Soul. We love that movie. Watch it on Hulu.
And we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, how much we loved that documentary.
It's a great movie. And then Chris made an awful joke about Jada Pinkett Smith in his opener. And it was totally uncalled for. And it seemed like he was targeting Jada. They said it wasn't in the script, but that's questionable because the cameras were trained on Jada and Will.
Let's do the side note for that because they can't get their story straight about that.
Okay.
About whether or not Chris Rock ad-libbed it or whether or not it was in the teleprompter. They can't get their stories straight about who knew about it. All I know is that the fact that they had the camera cue up to cut away to Will and Jada says that they knew that a joke was coming about Will and Jada. Did they know that Chris was going to say that specific thing? I don't know. But the fact that they can't get their story straight speaks to a larger dysfunction. And that's not Will and Jada's dysfunction. That's the Academy's dysfunction.
Agreed. So Chris said, Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it. And the audience was like, ugh. And he said, that was a nice one. Like he was trying to redeem himself after that. And then, Will saw Jada's expression. He walked up and he smacked Chris with an open hand. And a lot of us, when we saw that, we were like, oh, it's a bit. Because I thought the sound it made was like a fake sound.
Well, and it was so weird because everything froze on American broadcast. Everything froze.
The sound did.
Yeah, the sound went out. And
Camera
then
didn't.
No, well, it froze for me for several seconds. And then the next thing I saw was Will Smith saying, take my wife's name out of your fucking mouth.
Yeah. We didn't hear it. Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth. We didn't hear it because it was mute for us, but it got on Twitter pretty fast after that from the international versions.
I mean, and that part of it, like the muted audio, that was the censors. That wasn't the fault of the Academy or the director. That was standards and practices just muting it and fucking up the broadcast for Americans.
Yeah, because they have to do that. They'll get fined megabucks.
Yeah, but everything after that was mismanaged. Let's just say that. It was.
Yeah. So we heard, and it was later confirmed, that there's a long-standing feud between Chris Rock and Will Smith, and that he's been targeting Jada for decades, basically.
And I'll be honest, I did not remember that Jada has alopecia. I did remember that Chris Rock has been targeting her for years, decades even. That he's had a real bug up his ass about Jada specifically and Will and Jada generally. He's always got something fucking shady to say about them.
He does. Do you want to play the clip from Zoom and then we can talk about everything and bring it up? All right. So Tanisha used to write with us as Oya, and she covered a lot of the stories. I think there was at least 2 stories about Jada Pinkett Smith's alopecia. She was in the Zoom this week, so she talked about that. And here's a segment from that. This is kind of long because we talked about this for quite a while.
Because even for him, it was out of his character. It was actually out of his character. And you could see it. And I think that's what was more upsetting to him than anything, than the actual comment. And I could see it because people were like, oh, he was out of control. No. Will Smith was very, very intentional because he strolled up on that stage. He didn't run up on the stage, y'all. He strolled slowly on that stage, and he had the forethought to open his hand because he could have punched Chris.
That's what I was thinking too. He's bigger, he's stronger. He also has all the training from all those action movies. If he wanted to hurt him, he would have. He was making a point. He was making a point.
Mm-hmm.
I wish he would have just yelled from his seat, keep my name out your fucking mouth. When he went backstage, went back there and slapped the shit out of her. And
That's what I think he should have done it off stage. I agree.
That's what I said too.
He needed to get the shit slapped out of him. I just didn't wish the world got to see it so that they can all judge him the way they're judging him.
Because it has so many layers of class and race and money.
Thank you. Yes.
And disrespect. So it's not just a slap. It looks like it's just a slap between two rich men, but it's not.
It's not.
And that we lose Jada in this. I had a hard time sleeping Sunday night just thinking about her and how embarrassed she must have been. And that she has been openly previously talking about how traumatic this whole thing has been for her. And that, you know, she went from covering it up, wearing wraps and scarves and turbans, to where she finally got to a point where she was able to embrace it, come to terms with it. I'm bald. This is where I am.
She was hurt at that night.
She was extremely hurt. You could see as soon as it happened, her face fell. And
she didn't even try to laugh. Like, she didn't even try to play it off. She just looked like,
damn, wow, that's... And for Chris to have been warned and then still do it anyway off the cuff, it wasn't in the script. The optics of Chris, who did a documentary called Good Hair, and as a Black man to stand up and openly embarrass a Black woman who's bald, and let's just say, maybe she was diagnosed with breast cancer and she didn't want to share it with anybody. Maybe she was secretly going through chemo and she's sitting there to support her husband. And here you come out your face and say something about her being bald. She does have an autoimmune disease, not to diminish how, you know, it was something out of her control. And to compare it to G.I. Jane, where she actively shaved her head to be, you know, what he was doing was shaming her, embarrassed her, and she's sitting there and the whole room laughed.
And millions of people watching.
The whole world.
Around the world.
Globally.
So that, I think, is the underlying context. And a lot of people are choosing to be obtuse and not look at that this is a nuanced argument. And I mean, we just passed the Crown Act in 2022. And here you are doing this now in front of the world to see, understand. And like you said, I wish he had just hollered from his seat, keep her name out your effing mouth. I think that would have got his point across and then handled it in the back.
But I was the one who covered all the stories of her losing her hair last year. And I have alopecia. Now, I talked about it in the stories that I've had to accept it because my hair started growing back. And then recently it started thinning out again at the top. That's why I had to cut it all off. And I can only imagine having someone pick on me in front of millions of people. And this is the other piece we want to skip over. A white audience, guys. It was a predominantly white audience. That's the whole other piece. You got a Black man being violent with his words towards another Black woman in a predominantly white audience.
Not just in the audience, off screen, watching the show, because a lot of Blacks don't watch the Oscars.
Exactly.
They got it this year because of the producers, but let's just be real. When you say a white audience, it wasn't just in the building.
Exactly.
Also, I think it's very telling that after it happened, how so many people rallied around Will.
That too.
It says a lot about the dynamics of how both of them are viewed in Hollywood. Now, I know people went and checked on Chris, but they went and checked on Will first. They went over to Jada first. It's very telling.
So I liked how Zakiya and Tanisha explains that there are a lot of layers to this and that people are being deliberately obtuse. Like, it's understandable. Right after this, I had this, there's no call for violence, blah, blah, blah. And then I got schooled pretty quickly that I should step back and not center myself as a white woman. And everybody was right. And so I said, okay.
Well, I think once I got past the shock of it, because it was shocking to see that on live television.
Yeah.
And the shock of it was made so much worse by the mismanagement of the Oscars and the Academy, Oscar producers, of not dealing with it in real time. The next time there was a commercial break, there should have been one of the hosts coming out and saying, okay, that was crazy, but, we're going to deal with it and we're going to get through it and we still have a live show to do. That's all it would have taken to just take everything down several notches.
Instead, it was like Amy Schumer saying, "Oh, the vibe changed."
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And no one knew how to handle it, which, okay, but you're also seasoned professionals. You've done live television before. You know that anything can happen. Why aren't you prepared to wing it just for a few minutes to send someone out to, just try to control the situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead, it was Diddy saying something when he presented next.
I was following a few of the industry reporters as they were in the auditorium. They were like in the balcony and they were reporting what was happening in the commercial break. So right after Questlove won for Best Documentary, basically Denzel was the first one on the scene.
Yeah.
He was right there with Will. Tyler Perry came over. They pulled Will aside and they were just calming him down and talking to him, just trying to figure out okay, what's going on. Bradley Cooper was like the next person on the scene. Nicole Kidman was also there. She was hugging Will. She was checking on Jada. And Will's publicist apparently made a few trips. Now the Academy says, oh, we asked him to leave, but he refused. And now, as we're recording this, TMZ and Variety is saying, actually, no, the Academy just lied. They did not directly ask Will to leave. They sent his publicist out to, check on him or something like that.
Okay.
So no one can get their stories straight. And Chris Rock is not saying a goddamn thing.
No, he's not.
Not even an apology to Jada.
No, he really should apologize to Jada. And, of course, Will Smith won the Oscar after that. That was wild.
Was a fucking raw moment. That was,
really was
one of the most raw moments I've ever seen in live television.
Yeah. I was watching it with my son. I called him over after this lap and we talked about it.
And once again, I feel bad for Serena and Venus that their
moment was,
their moment, all they were doing was trying to celebrate their dad and their family. And it was just crazy. But I felt really bad for Will during his speech because he seemed so ashamed of himself.
Yeah.
He seemed embarrassed. He was embarrassed that he lost his temper like that.
He was. So there have been, we're not going to get into many of them, but there have been a lot of hot takes on this.
And that was clear the night of. That was clear minutes after the slap happened that Twitter was already divided of what was really happening, whether or not the joke was, what kind of pretext that was. And I was like, oh shit, this is the moment for me to just sit back and listen and try to figure out, what people are saying, what I should say, how to, keep out of it. This is not the moment for white people to just talk over everyone and say, this is what happened. This is what you need to do. No, you don't have to participate in every fucking conversation.
It took me a minute, but I figured it out. And several days later, people were still saying how triggering it was for them, how awful, it was violent.
I agree. I think that there's a lot of performative overreaction.
Yeah. So you wrote a story about Jim Carrey condemning Will Smith. And in the opening to that, you were like, white people should step back. And you were pretty fair about it. So would you like to read the first two sentences from that?
Yeah, these are just the first two sentences. And people only read the first sentence before they started going batshit. So here are the first two sentences of a Jim Carrey story. At this point in the Will Smith, Chris Rock story, I am begging white people to just not have an opinion. Or better yet, y'all can have an opinion, but you don't have to share it with the class repeatedly as you talk over people of color.
So we got hate mail. You're perfectly correct in that. And I would never edit that. So we got hate mail and we got hate comments for that. I'm not going to read them. I will link some of it that I posted on Twitter. I got more. And the crux is, how dare we tell white women not to have an opinion? This is just about being a good ally and stepping back and listening to black women and honoring something that's not about us.
I was told I was gatekeeping white voices. And
we were called racist multiple times. You're racist against me. I'm a white woman. I never have my say.
And All they did was read the first sentence and they freaked out because I dared to suggest that you don't have to have an opinion about everything. You know that you can just sit out conversations and no one is going to judge you.
It's still happening where, there's a lot of hand-wringing over this, and it's too much.
So, yeah, one of my favorite parts of this incident, which is horrible on a lot of different levels, but I love the power behind it. Seeing the bits and pieces of power of Black Hollywood, there was so much deference to Denzel.
Yeah.
Denzel was the first on the scene, and that producers saw Denzel speaking to Will and they thought, well, we don't have to do anything because Denzel will take care of it. And Denzel putting a force field around Will and Jada, basically. It was important that the Pulp Fiction people who presented Will Smith, one of them was Sam Jackson. And Sam put his arms around Will and was real happy for him. And that was important too. And I love kind of analyzing it and seeing it. And a lot of people have noticed, like, okay, there aren't that many Black celebrities saying shit either way about Chris Rock or Will Smith right now. They're keeping it within the community. There's going to be, a meeting or something. They're going to figure it out. And until then, everyone's gotten the memo to not say shit.
Yeah. And the support is on Will and Jada's side.
Yeah, I think so. But we'll see.
Yeah.
There's a lot left to play out.
And it's like Zakiya and Tisha were saying, Chris knew about her struggle with alopecia. You can't not know. She's been talking about it. And he picked her out, and she wasn't a nominee. She was there to support her husband. He just has a long-standing beef with her.
Right.
Let's move on to the comments of the week. So my comment of the week is on the post about Prince Andrew thinking he's young and should get another chance. So Micah said, I want that woman's face off my money. I shouldn't have to think of pedophilia every time I pay bus fare.
That's bad.
It's a pretty good one-liner, too.
My comment of the week is from one of the stories about Kate preening so hard at the Phillips Memorial. And commenter Bazant wrote, she looks like a villain from Dynasty or Days of Our Lives in the 1980s at a funeral of someone they killed. She's so happy, it's bonkers.
That's what she does look like. That's pretty dead on for her look.
Kate does not have a poker face whatsoever.
She doesn't. I think she got a little Botox because she was looking kind of droopy on one side, and that happens to women sometimes.
Well, I mean, yeah, she's been Botoxing a lot. She gets fillers, too.
Okay. I mean, it doesn't look crazy, but you can tell she's had it.
It looks crazy sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's her face.
No, I mean, like when she's trying to smile through the fillers and Botox, it does look crazy.
Oh, you have to grimace. I think Kelly Ripa said something about that, like she couldn't smile because her Botox went wrong.
Yeah, but Kate was a fucking mess during that tour.
Yeah, I mean, what did we expect?
For her to not dress up in colonialist cosplay the entire time?
I mean, all you can go on is what she's done in the past, so of course she's going to do that.
I thought she was just going to wear flag shit. I honestly did. I thought it was just going to be colors of like the flags constantly.
No, she had to put her own spin on it. All right, well, thanks for listening, bitches.
Thanks, bitches.
Thank you for listening to the Celebrity Podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. If you like us, please turn off your ad blocker when you visit our site. You can text us or leave a voicemail at 434-218-3219. Our music is from AA Alto, Maiden, and via Premium Beat and Sound of Picture. Thanks again.
I really hope that things chill now. Like, we don't hear about it for a while with the Oscar shit. Although, that's not going to happen because it's one of the biggest stories of the year.
Yeah, and the Academy just lied, so...